Hi, it's happened to Steve with another video, and this one is on a personal note, and also it's about a hummingbird. And to kind of begin from the beginning is that my wife and I have been doing this for some period of time. We're doing feeders, both in the front, back, or where we can put the feeders in, and we've been taking care of the hummingbirds, and it's been interesting. And I don't know how many of you out there have hummingbird feeders if you get into that, but it's really interesting. You have to do the water, you have to do the sugar. It's pretty intense taking care of it, and you have to clean it out, every 3 or 4 days. But for me, it's been enjoyable. For my wife too, it's been enjoyable. And what we get out of it is that we see the hummingbirds, and they're curious. They kind of come up to you, or they fly around. You can hear their wings. They're just moving really fast, and they come up to you. They're kind of looking at you, and you're looking at them, and they take off. They're independent. They're hard to get kind of a relationship with, but I said they're real curious, and they're pretty smart. Yeah, I've noticed some things about them. They're pretty smart birds. But anyway, the reason how I'm bringing this up about hummingbirds, there was one situation with one hummingbird. Pretty amazing story, everybody, and I have to tell you, it was just an amazing story. But let me continue. This one bird, about a month ago, I've been noticing it has a red crest, and it has like two eyes on behind the actual eyes, right behind it. The way the feathers are just, it looks like two eyes, one eye on one side and one on the other, and so it's standing out. But it looked old, and what started is it started having seizures. I kid you not, seizures, like people have seizures. The tongue's hanging out. There are things that went on, and this bird was having seizures. What happened is, when I first noticed it, I noticed it was flapping of his wings. It was just out of control, but it was still on the branch, and so I was kind of watching it. It would kind of snap out and go over a period of time, and would go back to being somewhat normal. And this went on for some period of time, and the bird, what was unique about it, it stayed near the feeder. It knew where we were. It used to kind of watch us, from we have a tree next to the feeder, a plant tree, and it's there, and it just kind of perches himself and it watches. We're coming in the driveway, going out the driveway. It just kind of stays there and looks at us. But it feeds, and it feeds because of the weather conditions, whatever. And it has to feed really frequently. It burns through the fuel, through the sugar, really fast. And so this went on for some time. It had these seizures, but over a period of time, it just got worse. And it just got worse. The seizures were really bad. It was amazing to watch this bird just, convulsing. And then a couple of times it fell on the ground, and I had to pick it up. You don't pick up hummingbirds, you don't, unless something's really going on. And so I picked it up, and I was able to put it back on the branch, and then I kind of, for some period of time, it kind of snapped out of it and took off. This last time, though, it did not. And what happened is the bird was on the branch, and it just had a massive seizure. And, tongue was sticking out, and then I went to grab it, and it was kind of had, the feet were really attached to the branch, but I finally got it off. And I kept it in my hand. I kind of cuffed it, kept it warm. But this bird was really bad. This seizure was really bad. So I took it inside. Normally I wouldn't take it in, but I took it inside, and we have 2 cats, so we had to be very careful. We had to put it in the bathroom, and that's where I kept the hummingbirds. I was holding it the whole time. And what I did is I would give a little bit of sugar water, a little bit of extra water, and but the seizures continued. The seizures continued for more than an hour, maybe 2 hours. This bird was just convulsing. It was having a hard time breathing very heavily. And I really, at that time, I thought this bird was on its way out. It looked old, everybody. It looked like maybe it was time. But the bird was just really convulsing, and my wife and I were talking about it, and maybe we should let it go outside and let nature take its course. And that's basically what we did. And I took the hummingbird out, and it was still convulsing pretty bad. And then it kind of settled down. But this time it didn't take off. It didn't, there was a real problem here. And it kind of got on my finger, and I was just kind of standing there watching it. And I thought, it was staying on my finger, so maybe I'll just take it back inside the house. and keep it warm or whatever. And it saw me going back in, and it took off. And I can tell it wasn't flying very well. And so, it went past the next yard, and so I got a flashlight because I figured, it was going to be in pretty bad shape, and maybe, it was on the ground somewhere. So I went around looking for it, couldn't find it. And I really thought during that night, and it was funny, I was really emotionally attached to this bird. I mean, more extraordinary, I was really, I felt terrible about the bird, and there was such empathy for it, and this kind of suffering that it was going through. And, that night I prayed, and I prayed for the bird. Other prayers too, for other patients, whatever, but I did pray for the bird, and I was really attached to this bird. And it looked old, everybody. I really thought it was time, and I thought, it was his time, and, probably passed away. And sure enough, the next morning, I take the feeder out, and I do it before daybreak. I keep the water inside, so it keeps it warmer. And kind of daybreak, and when the sun kind of came out, guess who showed up? That bird. This time, I kid you not, it was full of energy, and I had to really double check this out and the bird looked younger. I kid you not, it looked younger, and it was just vital. It was just stunning, and I could not get over how this bird looked really younger. It was the same bird, red crest, the two eyes behind the other eyes. So I knew it was the same bird, but it looked younger, and it was vital, and it was flying, and it was just buzzing around. But the thing was about this bird is that even though it was doing a lot better, it didn't know who I was anymore. There was no attachment. It totally forgot who I was. It even forgot about the tree and everything else where it used to perch. And but it did feed. And as soon as I was totally surprised by it, everybody. I was shocked by this thing was still on, and it was young. And the bird took off, and that night when I prayed for it, I was asking, give me a second, give this bird a second chance. And that's exactly what happened. And why am I telling you this story is that God does some stuff. I mean, it's really, it really is stunning. My wife was complimenting me on taking care of the bird and making sure it was okay, and she was saying I deserved the credit for it, but I said this time, I looked at my wife, I said, nope, not this time. This credit doesn't belong to me. It belongs to them up there. And I had a sense that this bird, this was there was something else going on here. There were forces going on here with a small little tiny hummingbird. And I kid you not, this bird was vital. This bird was really buzzing around, and when you looked at it, it looked really young. Before, it looked old. But this time, it's kind of like a rebirth. But it sure didn't recognize me anymore. But it did go for the feeder. But I'm just telling you this story because, sometimes God answers you in ways that it is stunning. This is really more direct. And as I said, I just felt more going on, and believe it or not, I went back inside the house, and I told my wife about it. And she was telling me I was deserving the credit, and I said, not this time. This is not this. There was something else going on here. And so, but God, he watches out. And I said in the last video, the relationship with God is for eternity. It never ends. And there are kinds of ups and downs, and you go all over the place. And sometimes, God answers you in a really direct way. And pretty stunning, guys. I mean, there were forces going on here with a small little hummingbird. And I'm just kind of sharing this story with you, and I'm kind of noticing it's a longer story, but I'm just telling you it's pretty stunning how this bird, it was just, you saw it before, and then after, it was just I had to really check to see if it was the same bird, but it had the same markings, the same red crest, and the two markings behind it, so and I knew it was the same bird, but it sure looked younger. But as I said, things were just going on with this bird, and I said there were forces going on, and I said God sometimes answers you. And in my case, in this case, it answered, the prayer for this bird, this hummingbird, got a second chance. And so I'm just sharing this story to you because I was really taken aback by it. And if you knew how I was emotionally attached, I felt really terrible for it that night. And to find out the bird, I thought it was a goner. I thought it was a goner. I thought, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning it was going to be, it was gone. I wouldn't never see it again. And there it is the next morning. Anyway, I'm just telling you the story, and it's turning out to be a long story. And looking at the time, things happen, guys. You have a relationship with God, and it's eternal. It never ends. And He's always with you, one way or another. He's always with you. And we go there. We have the ups and downs. We go all over the place. I talked about this last time. It is a relationship forevermore. It is a relationship that you're with God forever, and He's with you, and you're with Him forever. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and another story told, and until the next video. But I do really appreciate your time. And amazing story. I had this small hummingbird. Just incredible. Anyway, I hope your day goes well. I always hope your day is going well. And until the next video, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for your time.